30, and welcome to this 1st of April meeting of Te Puna Kōrero, and no, it's not a joke. So let's start with the serious business of apologies. We have no apologies for this meeting. A public forum, we've had no requests from the public to speak at the meeting either. Are there any conflict of interest declarations that people would like to make? I take it that as a no as well. And in terms of notification of extraordinary business, there are no items. Just before I move on to confirmation of minutes, just remind all of us that before you speak, switch your microphone on, and after you've finished speaking, switch your microphone off. Okay, confirmation of minutes of Te Puna Kōrero of the 25th of March 2021. I'm going to move those minutes as a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Waddle. Does anyone wish to speak or no? In that case, I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. So let's move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is reports. And this particular item 6.1, which is a local government New Zealand policy remit, which has been put up. And I will move it to get onto the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Hayward. Now, I take it that everyone has read this proposal for a policy remit to the Local Government New Zealand Conference. Can I ask Councillor Hayward to give us a background to this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody. I would like to start off that this, the genesis of this remit for me started in the first workshop held when the dog control policy and bylaw review was underway earlier on in this term. I'd raised in the session my concerns around underground puppy breeding, puppy farming is used as a more common phrase. And that would hope that we could see some way that our own bylaws could reflect some additional language that could empower the council to track puppy lippers and so forth in a way to try and show local leadership on the issue. Obviously, the nature of the problem is truly unmeasurable at this stage. But as a councillor in one of the wards with the larger number of dog attacks per annum in Porirua City, it's, I think, important that we investigate every measure we can to try and track unknown dog population growth. I wanted to thank the support of council officers and Councillor Wehapi in trying to find a way that we could show local leadership, while at the same time acknowledging that the bylaws and policies may not, at present, may not be the best place to make that change. This remit, if passed by Te Puna Kōrero, would go to Local Government New Zealand. If they, as a nationwide body at the annual meeting later on this year, pass this remit, it will be the responsibility of Local Government New Zealand to lobby the central government for them to pick up work on dog control legislation reform. Some of you might know that the previous government had started in this area. For some reason, it has chosen to not make it a priority. I believe that it's time for them to reconsider that and try and push this more aggressively. In the end goal is that we would like to see law in place that helps support local dog breeders, those who are doing their job, the vast majority of which are doing their job completely responsibly, to help give certainty to consumers who purchase dogs, and to also give certainty to councils in terms of their own bylaws and policies. So that is the genesis of the proposed remit. Kia ora.
Thanks, Councillor Hayward. I think at this stage it might be a good idea to have council officers or whoever's going to speak on behalf of council to give us a bit of a background to this, to throw up any issues or ways forward or otherwise.
I'll just speak briefly on the process issue, because I know very little about the content of this, but I would just point out there's some process requirements in here. So we either, as a council, we have to get the support of 5 other councils, or it has to go through a sector group. We don't think there are any sector groups available for it to go through, so it will require us to go through a process to get other councils on board to this. So it has to get that to even get to the AGM. And I think I'm looking at Jack at this point, but I think there is also a bit of a quality control check at LGNZ, so it might do a little bit of backwards and forwards. So in terms of the content, actually this has been initiated not from staff, so it's from councillors. So I don't know that there's anything in particular that we could contribute to what's on the page here.
So just as a matter of, I'll get you, Councillor Morell. Wendy, the timing in terms of getting 5 other council support, how long would that normally take if you've looked around? How long have we got?
That's a good question, but I imagine it won't take that long. We'll just send out an email to a range of our friendly councils and try and garner support that way. That's not probably a difficult process. Okay,
just wanted to check on that. So, councillors, open it up for discussion. Do we hear Councillor Morell? Are you?
Yes, I just this has come left field. I knew nothing about this till we got the paper. So, can council officers remind me what is the process for lodging a remit? I don't mean lodging a remit, getting a remit to this stage. I mean, obviously, I would have thought that some sort of communication would have been to us prior to us suddenly getting a paper in front of us.
You probably know almost as much as I do about this, Councillor Morell, because the only other one in my time here that we've done was on housing. So, like this issue, it came up in debate around the dog policy. So it was canvassed round the table. You were given the advice from officers at the time that bylaws were not an appropriate mechanism to do this because it would sit outside the law. So this was an initiative from 2 councillors. So that's all it really takes to get it on the table here. I had a meeting, the Mayor and I had a meeting with Councillor Wehapi and Councillor Hayward and agreed to help put it together. But it's actually an initiative from those 2 councillors, and that's all it takes is 2 councillors to do that.
Right. So accepting all that, now's your chance, councillors, to discuss this around the table at least. Yes, Councillor Duncan. Got you.
I have a lot of sympathy with the reasoning behind it. It makes good sense. I wondered, though, if the previous government were working on this, why was it dropped? Are you able to enlighten us on that?
No, as far as I know, no information has been conveyed as to why they've deprioritised this work. However, there was a minister attached to animal control rules. In a subsequent reshuffle, that portfolio was not assigned. So that I would take as an indication that at least there wasn't, from a legislative point of view, a priority at that point in time. That said, the nature of the RGC remits, as I understand them, is that we can request the government to take further action on any range of situations, irrespective if there is a portfolio assignment or not.
All right. Any other? Yes, Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Much like Councillor Morell, I kind of feel like this has come left field. I would have appreciated having a heads up and maybe having the conversation around a workshop actually to be able to flesh out this issue. And I do wonder if our dog policy that we talked over and moved in the previous meeting doesn't cover your concerns. I did have also a question around the dog attacks and is there a breakdown on the breeds as well in the Western Ward? And maybe there might be a staff member.
Nick is the closest to a dog expert we have.
Say no more. This is quite a challenge because we don't have much information and evidence base to go on, and so we don't have a lot to offer by way of information, and that was really the challenge for us in the dog policy. Was we've got very blunt tools to address this issue, and we're not really aware of it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but we need a bit of an evidence base and a bit of information with which to even found that to give you, and that's just not there at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Just before you, Councillor Morrell, Councillor Watt, did you have a... Okay. Councillor Morrell again.
Yeah, I do have an issue with this because I think there is no evidence that we've got that's a problem here in our own city, and so why we should be advocating on behalf of the rest of the country on something like this, I'm not aware. But there is no issues here in Porirua about puppy farming that I'm aware of. We've got no evidence of any such carrying on. So I think this is just, to be honest, a waste of officers' time when we've got more important things to worry about in the community than puppy farms, which would not appear to exist in this part of the world.
Yeah. Anyone else would like to have a say on this? Yes, Councillor Weehappy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I knew who you were talking to. Oh, thank you.
There may not appear on the surface to be any issues in Porirua, but there are some of us who do have a relationship with dog rescues in this area, and it is very alive and well. And these people who are puppy breeders don't actually call themselves necessarily breeders. These are people that keep their dogs in their backyard. Don't get them de-sexed. Keep breeding them because people want kids want a puppy for Christmas. Kids want puppies for birthdays. So, I do know where you're coming from. You can't see any physical evidence, but it is something that does exist, and it's something that personally I just can't sweep, underneath the rug.
Oh, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, following on from that, the work appears to have been done already. From what Wendy was saying, it's a matter now for us to send out an email to other councils to see if we can get 5 sympathetic councils behind us on it. And reading through this, it makes good sense to me, and I think that it'd be quite good if Porirua were the council that actually initiated governments or sort of put a bit of push behind government to do something about it nationwide.
Does anyone else want to make a comment? Councillor Baker. Mayor Baker.
That's okay.
How many times do I have to do this?
It doesn't matter.
Before you beat me around the head? Yep.
So to get this approved, I would need to take it to our mayoral forum group. So we've obviously got another 3, and then we've got 3. So there's 6 of them. So trying to get those across the line is my first step as to where I would go if this is going to cross the table.
Yes, Councillor Seuli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Worship.
No problem, mate.
I think for me, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I'm in support of this for the simple fact that we're trying to initiate something that's good. I suppose if the concern that we have is officer time, I'll be interested in how much officer time is spent on it. But for me, I think it's a good initiative, to support and to see whether others kind of can get involved. I mean, those who've got dogs kind of can appreciate this, and also, the humanity behind this. So I'm in favour of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Ford.
Oh, just one further question around the process. So the mayor will go back to the mayoral forum. Those mayors will then, if they are sympathetic or in support, I don't like sympathetic, seems anyhow, they would go back to their councils and have a formal meeting and see if it would get moved and supported around that table. Is that right? So that could be a little while.
My understanding is that from time to time we're asked to second motions and to support motions. If it's in line with our current policy, we won't put it through a committee. If it's a new thing, which is likely to be, we would put it through committee. Most councils, I think, would follow that. So, yes, you're probably right. It could take a little bit of time, but most councils have a month cycle of meetings, and so I think that's the LGNZ AGM is not until July, so there is time for them to do that. So it's quite possible.
So just further to that, I likely will not be supporting this. I was happy to support the housing remit because I believe that there is an issue there, and it's good for our council to stand on that. In terms of puppy farming, I'm not sure that I want to be part of a council, that our city should be the city that has got a puppy farming issue, and I suppose that's what I'll say on that.
Okay, thank you. Taku.
Through you, Mr. Chair, does this consideration take into dangerous dogs, or are we concerned about puppy farming?
I'll have to...
So it's just puppy farming. We do have the ability under the current legislation to deal with dangerous dogs. We don't have, the legislation doesn't assist us at all with this issue. So that's why the remit is basically to go to government to get them to change the law. And just in terms of the staff time, it's already sunk. We will not be putting any more staff time into this aside from sending out an email or something which is minimal.
Does anyone else wish to? Okay, just before I put the motion, I will. My sense of this is that I am nervous about the evidence. While I'm sympathetic, I'm really nervous about the evidence around this, and I don't sense that we're well prepared. This has come to council now. I think it would have been better to do some more work on this and socialise it and get more evidence. And I think that we risk not being seen in a great light as a result of putting up a remit like this. But, that said, that's just my personal point of view. So unless there's anyone else that wants to speak. Yes, Mayor Baker.
Sorry. After discussing the remit, obviously, with the councillors, I started off initially uncertain because I don't want Porirua to be known as the city that has the issue with puppy farming, because I actually don't think it's huge here. I do agree we do have an issue around the rest of the country, so that was the reason I supported it. I do not want Porirua to be known as the city with those issues, because honestly, I don't think it's as big as this, but I do think it is an issue within the country. So that's why I've agreed to take the remit.
Okay. So that being said, and without further ado, I'll now put the motion and the motion is that we agree to lodge a remit proposal to the next Local Government New Zealand AGM to request government to introduce puppy farm legislation and reform the dog breeding and pet shop industries in New Zealand. Better regulate the sale of dogs and puppies. I'll now put that motion. All those in favour? Actually, what I'll ask for is a show of hands. So if you are in favour of the motion, please show your hand. And those against? So what's the count?
It's passed.
It's passed. Okay. I declare the motion carried. So we'll move forward to seek input from our other, or at least 5 other councils. Thank you, everybody, for that discussion. Okay, let's now move on to item 6.2, which is basically an approval to consult for an easement over Elsdon Park. Now, I'll take it that the paper is read. I'm going to move the motion to put it on the table. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morrell, thank you very much. What I will, if you will just very briefly tell us, remind us what this is about, just to summarise. Is that all right?
Yeah, through the chair, you're all familiar with the work that we're doing in Elsdon Park for stormwater and a wetland work, but there's a technical requirement under the Reserves Act to grant an easement. And to do that, we have to put a public notice out and have a submissions process. So this is about crossing T's and dotting I's, and we're hopeful that everyone would understand the benefit of the work we are doing, but nevertheless, we have to have this process. And I just note you've also been circulated with a slight amendment to the recommendation to take into account the bund. So it really is just getting our, making sure that everything is crossed, dotted, ticked. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do I have, does anyone have any questions regarding this? Yes, Councillor Duncan and then Mayor Baker.
Yeah, this seemed to me that something that should have been done right at the very beginning. Was it an oversight? Or?
Through the chair, we probably agree.
Mayor Baker.
Oh, mine was just, this is a frustrating thing in the sense that I'm hoping the RMA rules will change these sort of things, because having to apply for something that we're already doing is just a waste of time and waste of money. So happy to support it. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So I'm now, does anyone else want to make a comment? This seems pretty straightforward and is supporting what we all want to see happen. All right. So I'm going to move the report with the addition of the recommendation under agreeing a public notice of the words "and flood protection bund," which Andrew referred to previously. That's just an addition to that, because if you look at the map or the diagram, you'll see that flood protection bund there to the north. Well, yes. I assumed that would be fixed, given that it's already been pointed out by somebody previously. Taku, you want to?
Yeah, just looking at the paper there and looking at one of the sort of plans of what's going to happen there, it looks quite dangerous actually. And that's on page... Yeah. You know, where you're looking in, if it's flooding there, the water level rises, and that could be a consideration for safety for children. But does it just sit there, rise, and everyone looks at it, and hopefully it gets absorbed by plantation and pipe flow?
Good question. Do we have a...
I probably have to be careful not to stray too far into the design aspects of this, because I haven't been involved, but I understand part of the purpose of the pond is to provide some flood attenuation as well. So it's actually part of the flood protection network. So it's the idea is that it slows down and allows flows to accumulate and then drain away.
Can we assume that there is a fence around this?
Because kids walk to school across there.
Yeah. We doesn't show on the...
Through the chair, we will be having ongoing discussions with Wellington Water as to the sort of final aspects of the design. So we can certainly take that into consideration and add that in for sure.
Yeah, so it's that whole... And I assume that this has been done elsewhere in New Zealand, Taku, and that safety would be taken into consideration in the design. But if we can just have that confirmed, I think that would be great.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, Councillor Seuli.
Just a question. What's to assure that this doesn't same issues that we've got at the Aotea Lagoon with the ducks, and it doesn't occur here.
Yes, feel free.
Again, I have to be a wee bit careful about straying into the design aspects. The design has already been approved and consented, but I understand part of the design is that it's also a treatment wetland, so the plants within the wetland itself will absorb nutrients and sediment and heavy metals and hydrocarbons and things to actually improve water quality. So to actually the intention is to improve stormwater quality as it discharges into the harbour.
Yeah, so it's not exactly a pond. It's a wetland. Yep. Okay, anyone else that would like to make comment? All right, in that case, I'll put the motion with that addition and flood protection bund. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Right, so now we move on to item 6.3, which is the City Events Report. And this is basically, I'll take it as read as well, and I'll move it to get it on the table, seconded by Councillor Ford. This report basically informs us of the events that happened in the city and how they went, and providing us some feedback. And Helen Brooks is over there if anyone would like. Sorry? No, I haven't moved anything. But Helen, you can stay there now while you're there. Does anyone? I'm taking it as read. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask about the events or what happened and learnings? No. Okay, excellent. I'll therefore put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. So that brings us to the last item on the agenda, the reallocation of event investment program funds, which may have some more comments come out of this. So this is about $30,000 that hasn't been used over the past year. So I'll now move the recommendations to get it onto the table, seconded by Councillor Duncan. And perhaps I will get Glenn just to come up and just give us a little bit of background about this. I take it as read, but keep it as brief as possible. Sorry. It gives councillors more time to ask questions, you see.
Through you, Chair. Kia ora koutou. I think just to start, the event season's been a challenging season or year this year with COVID-19. So I think in testament to Helen and her team's work with these particular events, it has been a moving ball each month where events are being cancelled or removed. So these events are, I guess, exactly the same as other events that we're seeing happening around the country, either happening or not. Out of the events that we have seen delivered, the two that have returned their funding or have returned their requirement of funding are noted here, and we do still have one more outstanding event, which is planned to go in May, but the challenge has been primarily around trying to coordinate things moving in and out of alert levels. So that's been the challenge. The event this report's been written in a light of the intent of the Major Investment Program Fund, the spirit of events and the connectivity of people within our city and the economic benefits that these events drive. So hence the options that have been provided. So that's probably the introduction.
Thanks, Glenn. No, that's good. Do we have some... First, Councillor Trillen, then Mayor Baker.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just had a question around the options, because looking through the options, both options 2 and 3 to me look like they could be potentially quite good. And I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more as to why the recommended option here is 2 as opposed to 3.
Through the Chair. The recommendation of option 2 is it's for a community-led organisation as opposed to a council-delivered event. So we're trying to get the fund out the door and for our community to access that and deliver things in the spirit of what they see meaningful in the community as opposed to what we see. So that's the difference between option 2 and 3.
Okay, yes, Mayor Baker?
I do support option 2. I just want to make sure that we do support the new public holiday, Matariki, because that was a huge festival that Ngāti Toa did for us last year that we did jointly. And I'd like to see that become as large as our Waitangi Day, because I think we've got the perfect option with Ngāti Toa. So I'd like to make sure we have that event funded next year. Just my personal. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sure you won't. You don't need to comment on that, Glenn. Thank you, Mayor Baker. Does anyone else have any? Yes.
I've just got a question around Creekfest. I know the reasons obviously is probably with COVID. Is that is there any suggestion that it's not going to happen next year?
Yeah.
Through the chair, I might just ask Helen if she has any further insights on what I do. Our understanding at this stage is it is expected, but I don't know if Helen's got any more to add to that expectation.
I'm on. Through the chair. Thanks, Glenn. My understanding is that 2 years ago the decision was floated that they would do Creekfest every second year. And having spoken to the organisers, I think that that's probably where they're going. So being that they delivered in 2020, I think the focus is to do it again in 2022.
All right. Yes, Taku.
I think while we're on the topic of events, just FYI for Council that Ngāti Toa are hosting the National Iwi Chairs next month from the 5th through to the 7th, I think. So all the chairs of each tribe comes in, over 300 of them.
Wow.
It's a huge calendar event for Māori, and they talk about 4 particular pillars of concern for iwi nationally. The day before they have a youth forum, a national youth forum around leadership for young people. So it's big. It's big for us, and we'll certainly have some invites sent out to our council and the members of councils to come and have a look, have a see. And so we'll be showcasing a lot of what we're doing of interest to the motu and form relationships and networks.
Mm.
So just for your information.
Thanks, Taku. Is that going to use any council facilities?
Yeah, the arena. Yeah,
it is going to use it's going to be at the arena. I assumed that it was going to be, but
yeah,
it wasn't clear.
The Pōwhiri welcome would be at the marae and then transfer.
Right, and then transfer to the marae. Okay. Yes, Councillor Weehapi.
Thank you. When I first read the report, I was actually in favour of option 2, but just listening, option 3, sorry, but just listening around the table, I'm happy to support 2 and also support Mayor Baker's comments in regards to Matariki and actually making a really big thing out of that this year, please.
Yes, Councillor Ford. Thank you, Councillor Weehapi.
Thank you, Chair. I think, sorry, before I ask this question, I just want to thank the events team. We probably didn't in that previous, but they've put together an amazing array of events that covered, everyone across the city. So just left that out. The question I had was just, I'm happy to support option 2 as well, but I do note the comments that the Mayor made around Matariki and the funding of Matariki. That is only in option 3. Can you please just expand, is Council supporting Matariki? Is there financial backing in terms of our events budget, please?
Through the chair, yes, Matariki will be a part of our events program, and we will be seeking additional funding support to deliver a bigger event than what our existing budget manages.
Sorry.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm happy to support option 2. I think it's a much more transparent process if we go via that avenue. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Does anyone else wish to comment? If not, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. As I said, last item on the agenda. It's now 9:04 and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everyone.